Hey everyone, welcome to Dance Colleges and Careers, brought to you by Instadance. Professional training to dynamically style your technique, stage presence, and confidence. My name is Brittany Noltzmeyer, and I'll be your guide to helping you find the perfect college for you. Dance Colleges and Careers is here to provide you with information about different colleges, what to expect, and how to find the right college for your dance style. Go to instadancecoach.com with any further questions and follow me on social media at instadancecoach, INSTADANCECOACH. Let's hit it. All right. Hello, everybody. Here we have Miss Karen Stokes coming from the University of Houston, and she is the director of the dance program. Is that right, Karen?
That is correct.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I have been at the University of Houston since 1998. So I've been in there for 22 years. And before that, I had a career in dance, primarily in New York City for about 10 years. And I got my undergraduate degree in dance, a Bachelor of Fine Arts at Ohio State University. And after about 10 years in New York, I went back to school to the dance program at UCLA in Los Angeles. And I got my Master of Fine Arts in choreography from UCLA. And then I got hired at Connecticut College for a job. And after that, Kent State University for another job. And then I came to Houston, which is my hometown. I grew up here from second grade through high school.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome to be back home again.
It is. It was a full circle for me. I didn't ever think I would be coming back to Houston, but when the opportunity was offered to me, I thought that this was really a perfect fit for me to come back and give back to my hometown community in the world of dance, which has been my passion over the years.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's amazing.
Thank you.
Yes. So can you explain what your main role is at the University of Houston?
Well, I have two roles. One is I am an educator myself, so I do teach some of the classes and curriculum. But as director of the dance, I also do the leadership and administration of the program. So developing the program, fundraising to a certain degree for the program, administrating how the courses work, rehearsal schedules, so forth and so on. Anything that has to deal with actual administration sort of falls on my plate as the director.
Cool. All right. Very nice. So you offer a BA program and a BFA program. Can you talk about maybe why someone would choose one over the other? Why might you want a BFA instead of a Bachelor of Arts? Because I think that can be pretty confusing as a high school student and trying to figure out what goals you're aiming for with that college degree.
Yeah, I think I think you're absolutely right. It can be very confusing, even to us after being in academia for many years. So yes, it is confusing actually, and it's confusing even to us who are in academia.
Yeah.
What's the difference between a BA in dance and a BFA in dance? And our BFA in dance at the University of Houston is relatively new. So we've had the BA in dance for a number of years. And the difference in a BA and a BFA is that with a BA, you have less hours in dance and you have a minor. And the minor fills out that extra hours that you would take normally in your BFA. Instead, you're taking that within your chosen minor. So that works very well for a lot of people because they have a strong secondary interest that they want to get something on their transcript and also some further knowledge about that secondary interest. And that can be a very, very good fit for that. For instance, in our students who are very interested in getting prepared for dance certification in the state of Texas, which would mean teaching in any kind of public institution across the state, that is actually a pretty good fit with the BA and doing a minor in education, so that you're getting those education hours along with the dance hours. So that can be very, very good. But there's a number of other things that a minor would really be something of interest to a student. Of course, it's very, very individual and based on the student interest.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, we've had students who have been very interested in American Sign Language, for instance. And so their minor was actually in American Sign Language, or we've had students that have been interested in creative writing and interdisciplinary arts. And so they do a minor in interdisciplinary arts because that's something that they feel very strongly about. So that works very, very well for many students, but it does reduce the number of actual hours in the dance classrooms and getting all the curriculum that the dance program offers. So for those students who really are focused primarily on how they will come out of school and professionally dance or work as a choreographer or get into the production end of dance, then sometimes that BFA is a better fit because they have more hours required of them that are fulfilled directly in dance because they don't have the minor.
Right. Okay. So they're spending many, many hours in the dance studio as opposed to working on that second or secondary
right.
focus.
And I mean, I think it's a difference of about 18 hours out of like 81. So the BA in dance is still getting a lot of hours in dance, right?
Yeah.
But those extra 18 hours in dance that you would get in the BFA are coursework also that extends you in the areas of theory, not just technique, but theory and ideas. Like some dancers are really thinking about long range plans of how they stay in dance.
Right.
And so you're getting different requirements on the business end of dance. So those things can be very important for the right student.
Yeah, absolutely. They're becoming very important in my life now.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
And I think everybody especially during this time, tapping into those other skills you have. And
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so the teacher certification program, I'm very interested in that. Can you give us a little bit more information about that? Is that to teach only in the school system, or I haven't seen that before? Give us a little bit of information.
The teacher certification program prepares you to take the test that you will need to take in the state of Texas in order to become certified to teach dance in the state of Texas.
Sorry, certified to teach dance in the state of Texas in the school system or studios?
Yeah, in a public school system. So no, there's no, specific certification for teaching in studios.
Right.
You could do a BFA in dance and get hired in a studio, right?
Yes.
Nobody has had kind of a specific certification for that. But there is a certification process in the state of Texas for teaching in public schools. So if you want to go into a high school and teach, in their dance program or something like that, you're going to have to be certified to do that. So what it does is prepare you for that certification. We don't give the certificate to you. You have to pass the exam in order to get that to get the certification. So we do have that process, but the real reason the certification is important, you want to be prepared for that test when you get to that point, right?
Yeah. But
you also have a chance to work in the schools prior to graduation teaching. And so that's really hands-on work with students teaching before you graduate. So that's another skill set that is strongly developed in that process. But it also, when you do that and you major in the College of Education, you're getting some very solid information about education and what is currently happening within education and how you should interact with the community of teaching.
Yeah.
It's a good undergraduate direction for people who already know that their primary interest is in teaching. It's a really good route. Now, some people come in and they like teaching, but they're really interested in performing.
Right.
They're really interested in making dances. It's not that they're not going to gain teaching skills from going the BFA.
Right.
It's just not quite as focused in that area as it is when you do the minor in the College of Education.
Okay. Yeah. So, because I went to college in Oklahoma.
Oh.
Yeah, but I went to OCU, but I'm not from there. I'm from North Dakota.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So when I came down south, of course, sports are a big deal, and kind of blew my mind with how big of a deal the dance teams are.
Yes.
Especially in Texas. So as someone going through that certification process, is that kind of guiding you more towards the dance team world?
Yeah, I know where you're going with this. So let me take a stab at it. Okay. So the University of Houston dance program is not focused on training students to do drill team teaching.
Okay.
We're not focused on that. We acknowledge the fact that many of our students are interested in that and Some of them will be in that position post-graduation. But our focus as a program has been about dance as a fine art, a fine and performing art form.
Okay.
We don't focus on what the skill sets are for being a great competitive drill team instructor, but we do feel that what we teach in our curriculum ends up being transferable to being a really great teacher, whether you're in drill team or not. Okay. So we do think that the skills are transferable, but we focus primarily on dance as a fine art, and we focus on teaching dance from the pedagogy lens of the student and how to develop the student as a teacher. So that varies greatly, as you know, depending on the students that you have. So there's no generic model that you can say this form of teaching works for every student. However, there's a great deal of information on what works. Right. So that kind of teaching of pedagogy that we're very interested in, and our lead person on that is Professor Rebecca Valls, who has a very deep bench in pedagogy, and she would be much better to actually answer questions related to that program than even I am, even though I'm the director of the program. Yeah. Okay. And she also teaches a wonderful new summer program with young audiences in Houston at the University of Houston, which students can take and get a certification from, that is about integrated learning skills. So it looks at, it's teaching, it's going into the schools as a teaching artist. So it's not going into the schools necessarily to have a full-time job teaching dance, but it's going into the schools when you're an artist and working with students from the lens of being an artist. So it's really from the teaching artist viewpoint. But what's interesting about it is that it's working towards how you integrate academic areas with dance, and the connection between academic and areas and dance, and how you use that to help students to better understand both academic areas, whether it's science and dance, those two things, the crossover between that, and how movement can actually help students to understand science. So it's a very, very interesting component within dance education in the field right now.
Okay. Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, that is cool.
It sounds pretty unique for that summer program. So what's the summer program called?
The summer program is called Arts Learning Lab, ALL.
Okay.
So yeah, that's worth looking up online.
And is that for high school students to attend or college?
It's in that transition period. It's better if they're a little bit older in college.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So because it's better if they've already had a little experience in pedagogy before they come in there.
Yeah. Pedagogy, the teaching of dance, guys.
The teaching of dance, exactly, yes. Exactly. The teaching of dance. So we have 2 different semesters of pedagogy, and it's better if those courses are already under your belt before you do ALL.
Very cool, like a bonus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
Can we talk about some of the styles and different dance classes that are offered, like ballet, modern, jazz? What?
Yeah, we do offer those traditional modalities of technique that have been offered in the university setting for years, which are modern dance has always had a stronghold in the university, but ballet as well, and different forms of jazz have also been something we've taught. This past year, we had an instructor teaching West African dance, and
cool.
Very cool. And we hope to also expand further into other areas of dance as we move forward, because we're looking at, I think a lot of people are looking at this nationally in dance right now, but we're looking at really what is the kind of training that dancers need in the field that is also a diverse training. And that really is beyond what has traditionally been done in dance.
Right.
Which in today's world, when we think about what is currently happening in current events, finding ways for us to really work towards being a more multicultural training ground is super, super important.
Yeah.
So, but we do have those traditional ones right now, but I think it's under investigation in terms of how we will do that in the future.
Very cool. You mentioned West African. I was in East Africa in January, so I got the Chaganda down from
Oh,
Uganda.
nice.
Yeah, so
Oh,
there you go. A little bit more,
yeah.
multicultural.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. We just started having West African dance taught by a wonderful woman by the name of Tracy Jackson. So yeah, that's been a great addition to our curriculum.
Awesome. Do you wish you had that focused, personal touch to pinpoint your exact trouble spots in your dance routine? Learn to unlock your waiting potential and rise above the competition with your own dynamic dance stylist. Why waste hours and days practicing without a step-by-step strategy? In an action-packed plan created specifically for you, you'll see great improvements in just the first week. Fire up the fierce dancer inside with our detailed yet focused program where you can attain results that usually take dancers months. Click the link in the description or email Brittany at instadancecoach@gmail.com to apply. That's INSTADANCECOACH@gmail.com. Okay, so let's talk about auditions. Auditions and getting into the school, because that can be a very, very scary thought as a high school student. Let's start with the most simple thing. It says appropriate dance attire. What does that mean to you guys, and what do you want to see high school dancers to come in dressed like, and how should they present themselves?
Well, we don't have a very strict dress code, but what we would like is to have the dancers in preferably close-fitting dance clothes so that we can see their bodies well, and also to be able to have bare feet for some things. And if they've taken any ballet, we would like them to bring their ballet slippers.
Okay.
Traditionally, although again, this may change, we have done a short ballet bar, very basic ballet bar. Then we have done a more contemporary modern center. And sometimes we do a little bit of improvisation at the end. Yeah. So that's what we have done. And it's just enough for us to get to know the student a little bit, or the prospective student. So that's traditionally what we've done. And we've done that live. So students come to campus to audition with the faculty there, and we're all live. So it gives us an opportunity also at the end of the audition to talk to them about our program, to ask them, if they have questions, to talk to them about what we think is special about our program.
Yeah.
To then also give them an opportunity to ask their questions of us. So that's a very important part of the audition, actually, is that gathering at the end where we actually become a community and we talk about various nitty-gritty things in terms of the curriculum and what year you need to take something, but also broader things about what would this program prepare you for in the future. That kind of thing that are sometimes very much of an interest to parents.
Exactly.
So we try to also have that conversation at the end of the audition.
Can we elaborate more on that? Of where do you try to get the students to go? On where you want your students to land in the future?
Yeah, I think what we want our students to be able to do is to have the creative skills and critical thinking skills that they can move a lot of different directions, right? So we don't know where our students are going to land, and they have landed in a lot of unexpected places, but we want to make sure that, because the world is changing, what the kind of skills that I might have needed when I was in college have changed. And we don't know where the next changes are going to happen, but for sure they're going to happen. And so the more that we can teach the students to be able to have a clear thinking process, a clear critical analysis and thinking process, but also simultaneously be able to be very creative, think outside the box. In addition, we want our students to be very articulate and able to advocate for the arts, but advocate for themselves. So when they go into an interview for any given situation, that they have an ability to punt, as you would, but to be very, very articulate and be thoughtful in how they approach answering any given question. So one of the things that we have done to prepare our students post-graduation is had a focus on business arts. So at our school, which is a little different, I think, from many other institutions, we have a pretty strong emphasis on choreography.
Oh, okay.
Choreography is super, super important to us as a program because we feel like it teaches students how to be creative and how to think outside the box, and gives them the skills, whatever direction they want to go, to kind of take that risk-taking that you need to have when you're in a creative process.
Yeah, and start to think for themselves too.
Yeah, but hand in hand with that is the business arts part of it. Because if you are going into the field as a professional, 9 times out of 10, you will end up running a business, just like you are right now.
Right.
So what are the skills that we could give them as an undergraduate to prepare them for doing that? And so we have several classes that prepare students in those areas. One is a class in PR and marketing. So we really, teach them on what's happening and how you do that, how you build your website, how you actually write a press release, how you create your own postcards, because you end up doing that.
Yeah.
How you run a small organization, all the bells and whistles of what you do backstage to work, because there's a lot of work backstage that has to happen, as you know, in the production end of dance. That course gives them really a solid understanding of the area of public relations and marketing. And then we have another course that focuses on grant writing and how to ask for funding and how to get funding.
Wow.
Because as you know, it's hard to make a living as a dancer. And so often projects require people to fund you. And what is the process of doing that? So we work with students on grant writing, and we work with them also in I mentioned this earlier, on teaching artist skills. Because a lot of students who come in and they want to be professional dancers, they want to be choreographers, what they don't really know is that 9 times out of 10 you will teach. Mm-hmm. It's very rare for a dancer not to end up in a teaching position of some kind in the course of their career. So we do want them to understand pedagogy, but we also want them to understand how to put together curriculum that specifically targets the teaching of young students. So how can you create a great young audience program where you take it into the schools? How do you work as a young audience educator? What does that look like? That kind of work comes into play as well in terms of the business of sustaining yourself. So I guess I would say that it's really important for us to give the students enough skills that they could sustain themselves in a field that is a very challenging field to have a career in.
Yes, or a paycheck.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so these are really important. And what's really nice about all these skills, because all of these skills also are teaching leadership skills. Like how do you lead? What is important as a leader to do? All of these skills are transferable. So we've had a lot of students that have maybe stayed in dance for a while, but then decided to do something else. And those skills come into play. So they really do help the student to be successful, whether they stay in dance or they decide to move on to another field. And for instance, we have people who have ended up in financial investment areas, people who have ended up as accountants. I know, it's crazy. And people who have ended up doing public relations and marketing. We have a firefighter. A guy who was a dancer who's now a firefighter. And that's of course, awesome. Using the physical skills that he has, Yeah,
of course.
So a whole bunch of different fields that people end up in: physical therapy, nutrition, things that are related to the body, the wholeness of the body.
Yeah. So
we find that our students are pretty good at navigating post-graduation in a diverse way.
That's really cool. My sister is a physical therapist, and she was a dancer her whole life. And that was my biggest question. Like, are you glad that you got your first degree in dance before your doctorate? And do you find that helped you in your physical therapy? And she's like, 100%. Yeah. Couldn't be doing what I'm doing without it.
Yeah. Nice. It's really wonderful. We definitely have some people that have gone into the physical therapy end of this. And I think they really do appreciate what they learned in dance.
Right. Because a lot of dancers need physical therapists.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what's interesting about dancers is that dancers learn how to work in a community. And one of the things that is going to be really important for our country and future is how we work together. How do we build bridges between people and work together and make communities better for the future? And I think the work that dancers often do, at least in our institution, We're very, very focused on how we build a community, internally with the students and what that means and what our responsibility is in terms of being compassionate, giving, generous people in this society. And so you mentioned earlier, what are the values that we have? And I think those are the values we have. The values we have is how we work together, how we be respectful, how we meet this individual student's needs while also trying to give them things that we think will be helpful for their future. So those things are super, super important to us. And we actually do have a lot of dialogues about what that means, what that looks like.
That's incredible.
I
love that,
nice.
building the community. It's important because especially in such a competitive world, you can get stuck in that who's better than who. So you can't move on like that. You have to have your friends and community and help each other out in order to succeed and thrive, really.
Well, sure. And competition is always going to be a part of it. The who's better than who.
Right.
But that competition can be very friendly and joyful. It gets a little hurtful. Mm-hmm. Even in our program, when we don't want it to ever be hurtful, sometimes it happens, just things happen and you have to kind of stop and just kind of recognize, okay, let's have a joyful competition. But, beyond that, let's be aware that each person is valued here and that we rise as a group, not because of one single ego.
Yeah.
So that's really important to us.
I love that.
Thank you.
Karen, let's take a step back. Why did you become a dancer?
I got into dance relatively late in terms of what traditionally is thought of going through this ballet world where you start at 7 or 8 and you train,
Yeah.
I didn't start until high school, but serious training until high school. Mm-hmm. But I fell in love with the physicality of it, to be honest. And it was sort of the joyful competition of it and the physicality of it and being able to fully embody something. It was never easy. It was always like, and it's still that way.
Right.
There's nothing easy about dance. I mean, there's just nothing easy about it. It is so many things firing off simultaneously, from the musicality of it to the technique, the incredibly challenging technique of it, to the artistry of it. It is just endlessly challenging. And I think that was very appealing to me. And it was very, as a dancer, it's very satisfying to have that mind-body connection where you're really firing off everything about yourself in the moment as a dancer. It's very, very fulfilling. So I was very attracted to that end of it, but I was also attracted to choreography. And so in the long run, that has become my primary passion, is how I make dances into a finished piece that I consider high quality, whatever that means, right?
Right.
whatever that means. We have so much diversity in the field, but I found as a dance maker and an artist, and I have my own dance company in Houston, and it's eponymously named Karen Stokes Dance. So it's easy to find my website. I continued, that's a nonprofit, which is another reason I feel very strongly about training students in some of the business arts areas, because many of the business art areas that I learned through having my own nonprofit, I learned through the burnt hand method. Just doing it and figuring it out. And I was like, oh, well, we can help our students to do better than that. So that is what became interesting to me as an educator. Choreography is my biggest passion. And so that's what I have done as my research. As a professor of dance, you have 3 things you have to do. You have to teach, you have to have a research component, and you have to do service. So my research component is choreography.
Amazing. So do some of your students graduate and try to get into your company in Houston?
All the time. And I've hired many, many of my students post-graduation. I do not hire them while they're students because I want them to stay focused on getting their degree. But post-graduation, I've hired many of them in my projects.
Amazing. Yeah. So that's a good point. You want them to focus on their degree. Do you think that a dance degree is necessary for someone who wants to pursue dance as a career?
I think in the short term, not necessarily. If you're extraordinarily already had a tremendous amount of training and you're at a very high professional level physically, that you can go straight into a dance company. But I think over the long term, it is actually necessary.
Yeah.
So it depends on your perspective, right? If you're really
absolutely.
just thinking in a much more condensed time period, your early 20s, then you probably, if you're very, you've already got a lot of training, you can probably go out there and find some work,
Yeah.
If you're thinking of the longer range picture of your life and where you want to take dance, if it's something that you think you want to sustain over a longer period of time, then coming and getting a college degree as an undergraduate, as a young undergraduate, is really, really helpful.
I agree. I when we're in high school, I think we can often just think that short term, next goal, what's the next show we're going to do? But
right.
You get into your 20s, you're kind of like, oh, but there's a little bit bigger world out there.
Yes.
And how can I be a part of it?
Yes. And there's a bigger world in dance that is beyond the next performance gig that you get.
Yeah.
And so that's why college is really helpful, to really give you some bench in terms of what is possible.
Okay. A lot of high school students, they're like, I have to get my service hours so that I can get into a good college. Like, that's what you're told from middle school. Do you have any advice on this, or do you see that getting into the dance program, or maybe that's just the admissions of University of Houston? How important is it that they get their service hours, their community service hours?
I really don't know, because it's not, as you mentioned, it's probably more at the level of the university, but I think the university level really looks at GPAs and SAT scores, so that's really the first, line. But I know high school students should know that any extracurricular activities that they do that fall into the service end of their life is going to be beneficial to them.
Right.
Period.
Mm-hmm.
So those things are super, super important, regardless of whether it helps you to get into a college or not.
Right. Let's see. We haven't touched performances at all.
Well, let me talk about performances, because often high school students are interested, what will their performance opportunities be when they come to the University of Houston?
Yes.
So we have two key main stage performance opportunities, one in the fall, one in the spring, but many other smaller performance opportunities in between that. So the first performance opportunity that we have in the fall is actually the student choreographed performed concert. And that is done through an adjudicated process where students submit works over a course of 3 showings. And then the selected works are produced, as a show.
So not everybody gets chosen.
Not everybody gets chosen, unfortunately, and it's mostly because there are more students choreographing than we can put on a single evening reasonably without making it be a 5-hour show.
Right.
So we do, but we give them, we try to mentor them through that process and help them through it. And that happens in the fall. And in the spring, I have a student pre-professional performance group called the Dance Ensemble. And the Dance Ensemble has a performance in the spring, ensemble dance works, in which guest artists and faculty choreograph on them. And there are opportunities. Being in the ensemble is by audition. So students audition to get into the ensemble. We do not allow freshmen into the ensemble. So you have to be in your second year to audition for it. And that's simply because the freshman year can be very overwhelming, and ensemble takes a lot of extra hours. So we're really trying to protect them in the freshman year so that they get the lay of the land of being in school and being in college before they try to attempt doing ensemble. But ensemble has a lot of different kinds of performances that happen over the course of the year, but the big one is at the end of the spring semester, where they have this big show of faculty and guest artists choreographed works. The students also have an additional show in the community at a wonderful theater called Midtown Arts Theater Complex, Houston. MATCH is the acronym for that. And they self-produce it, really. It's part of their training in terms of how you self-produce and how you actually are able to put together a show. But it's very much mentored, in particular by our production professor. That's a really kind of follow-up on the fall student show. Then right away in the spring, they have another opportunity to submit works for the MATCH in the community. And this past year, in spring 2020 when that show happened. It happened in February, so right before all the shutdowns started happening. And I know, but we got it in. And
good.
Yeah, no, it happened. It was our last show live that happened before the shutdown happened. And it was so brilliant. I mean, the student works were just so good and so diverse and so interesting. It was a really, really wonderful show. So one of the things that we get excited by is when our students really take the bull by the horns and start creating interesting works.
Yeah.
And we shoot for that, right? We're interested in that. So it was really a beautiful, beautiful show. And then there are different kinds of performances that happen around the city that students are involved in sometimes. Because we live in Houston, a lot of things happen out of the fact that we're the fourth largest city in the nation, and it's a very diverse city, and there's a lot of opportunities. So we're always trying to figure out ways to connect our students with the professional community in Houston. And so they get these series of master classes from local professionals, and sometimes people that are coming through town as well that are not local. But we focus primarily on really trying to get our students to know the professional community in Houston. So that's kind of a fun thing that happens when we're not in COVID lockdown.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are some things that I think are really cherished by our students.
Yeah. Those are really great opportunities. Would you say that the student choreography show, what's your title for it?
The student choreographer show is called Emerging Choreographers Showcase.
Okay, so for the Emerging Choreographers Showcase, is that only seniors or is it?
No.
It's anybody has the opportunity.
Yep, even
That's
freshmen
really cool.
can submit works.
Wow.
Yeah. And we have had some times where freshmen have submitted a work and it's been so good that it got put on the show, and then an upperclassman has not got put on the show, which is sometimes a little bit of a rough dynamic, but
absolutely
we're trying to say, hey, these are really the reasons why we don't feel this work is ready yet. Whenever that happens. And we also, when we see a work that just is ready, we think, well, even though they might be an underclassman, so to speak, they're ready. This piece is ready and we should take it on.
Okay. I have one final question. You talked a lot about the business arts and how you want to help the students be prepared for the business side of dance because, well, that's pretty limited. You can't really get that from anywhere, and it's really, really important. What type of students would you say are attracted to the University of Houston? Do you think they're dancers who already have business mind, or are they coming in for the choreography? What are your thoughts?
We get all kinds of students that come in. I think in large part because we are the University of Houston in a very, very large metropolis, and the city itself offers so many opportunities to our program. That is a draw for some students. But the other thing that I think is a draw for our students is the tight-knit community that we create. So I think if a student is interested in being in a kind of very nurturing, tight-knit community where we focus on community building, where we focus on how do you lead communities and how do you participate in a community, I think that is very appealing. And of course, almost every student that comes into our program wants to perform.
Right.
So we do have a good track record with doing performances. And so we offer that as a very important part of our curriculum. But we're also very interested in them developing their artistry as choreographers. So we get some young guns that come in and they are interested in choreography and they take that challenge.
Amazing. How can people find out more information about you, Karen? Or when can they see your next show with your company?
My next show is on hold right now because of COVID. So it may not happen. And I mean, the premiere of my next show, really what the next big show wasn't going to happen until fall 2021 anyway.
Okay.
But the smaller performance that was going to happen this fall which was going to be in September, it's going to have to be manipulated, I think, so, and I think the same is true with the university where we will see what happens we're not sure at the university level what's going to happen for the fall. So we're still working that out. Yeah. But if they go to University of Houston School of Theater and Dance, they will find the dance program and they will see what we're doing. And I also strongly recommend the Facebook page, the University of Houston dance program page, University of Houston dance program. I think it's what it's called, University of Houston Dance Program. And that really, we keep up to date with a lot of things that are happening and stories and, what's going on. And we do post that on Instagram as well. And so that's a good resource just for regular things that we're doing, that we keep that up flowing more so than even the website at U of H, because the website at U of H is, monolithic. So we can really keep the social media going much, much quicker, much faster.
Yeah.
And for my company, you just Google Karen Stokes Dance.
Yeah. So if you guys are in the Houston area, make sure you check out Karen Stokes Dance Company. Maybe she'll have a show when you're in the area and you can see that amazing choreography.
Absolutely. And if their student is not in the Houston area and wants to audition for our program, we do have ways to audition via video. So that would be a matter of emailing us and letting us know that you would not be able to be in Houston, but that you would like to audition, and we will work out a video audition for you.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. So you can video or be in Houston. There's 2 auditions a year, right? November and February?
Yes. And we have actually a third one in April now as well. So 2 in the spring, 1 in the fall.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, Karen. I think we really made it through a lot of stuff, and I learned so much about the University of Houston. Wow.
Thank you, Brittany. Take care.
You too. Thank you for listening to Dance, Colleges, and Careers, brought to you by Instadance. This episode is edited by Braden Grubb and myself, Brittany Noltemeyer. Theme song is created by Matthew Claiborne at Flamingo Sound and Show. And thank you to my sponsors, the Chiropractic Center of Leesburg and Claremont in Florida, and Pure Hemp Labs. Catch you on the inside.